Welcome into my video today of ranking all of my powder blushes. So I have done a ranking of all my cream blushes. I can't remember, I think there were 37, but I have 36 powder blushes and I want to rank them from worst to best. I do have some that are like trios and duos, and so sometimes there's like the trios, for example, will have other products in them, not just like blushes, but I'm specifically ranking just the blushes. And then the trios or duos that have like other finishes, say with a duo product, there's a cream in there as well. I'm just ranking the powder blush in this instance. So some of these are probably like products that can be used as blushes or blush toppers or highlighters or even bronzers in some cases, but the shade wouldn't work for me, for example, as a bronzer or a highlighter. So in turn, I put them in my blush collection because that's how they worked best for me. So if you see some of those items, that's why they're in here. I did not take the price of any of these into consideration, but I did take shade into consideration, because I do have some that are like the same brand, the same blush, just in a different shade. And there are certain shades that I do prefer over others. So that was a consideration in this. So I love ranking videos. I personally really like making them, I think, on my cream blush video. And one of the comments I got on the videos was, can you do a powder blush ranking? So of course I was like, yeah, absolutely, coming up. I am in the same space as my last video. I am just downstairs on the floor against my closet in a green t-shirt. I don't even know where I got this thing, but we're hanging out, we're casual. So I do want to swatch all of these on camera for you guys. I do want to mention these are just my personal preferences. There are going to be some disagreements 100% because there are some popular products in here that I've ranked a little bit lower, but that's okay. We are never going to be the same person and we can still be friends. Let us get to the ranking, starting from the worst all the way to the best. Here we go. So coming up at number 36 is the Balm Fire. This is the highlighting shadow and blush duo. So it includes two different shades in this. So these are pretty shimmery blush shades. And so I would use them more frequently as a blush topper than I would an actual blush by itself. This one doesn't have a very strong base. I am ranking this as a single product. This top one is just really not a shade that I like gravitate towards, and I think the shimmer is very pretty. It's just a really like fuchsia color, and I don't wear fuchsia colors very often. And then this next one here is actually a really unique blush, and it's the reason that I kept this in my collection, even though I ranked it so low and didn't declutter it, is because this is such a unique shade down here that I really wanted to keep it. And I will wear it occasionally, not very often, but sometimes when I'm feeling fun, I will throw this on kind of like on the balls of my cheek instead of like all the way back like I normally do, just because I think that shimmer and that pop of like light bubblegum pink is kind of fun. But it isn't my favorite. It isn't something I grab for on an everyday basis. It's not something I even think to reach for, especially for instances like going to work and whatnot. Probably neither of those is something that I'm going to put on. I did receive this in a boxy charm and I think it's fun to keep around, but it is my least favorite blush, so it came in at number 36. Next up is a blush in a trio from Kaja. Now, this has nothing to do with the Kaja formula. It is entirely because of shade. So this is the Butter Up Play Bento in 01. It is a really good formula. I love this stack. What it is the powder, it's a powder blush, it's a powder highlighter, and then a cream bronzer at the bottom. And I quite like the cream bronzer and the powder blush. However, this shade blush is just not my favorite. And I like the formula, it's just not a standout formula. So for example, a lot of these blushes, they'll rank higher for me because of longevity. I'm somebody who likes a lot of blush. I like to make sure my blush is kind of always on, and I don't like reapplying it, but I'm pretty rough on like touching my face or putting my head on a pillow like for a nap in the middle of the day. And I like to wake up and have it still be there. So when I rank these blushes, a lot of times you're going to see them go higher when the longevity is higher, or that's kind of be the narrative as we get higher in the ranking. So for the Kaja one, it just has kind of a middle of the road longevity. It's not a super long wearing blush. The formula is very nice. It is very creamy, very soft product, but the color is just not my favorite. I don't know why. It's very similar, I think, in tone to some of the other blushes that I have, but for whatever reason, it comes off as a lighter pink on my cheeks than I like. But when I look back in the viewfinder, it looks pretty orange, which is one of my favorite color blushes. That's just not how it translates onto the face. And so for that reason, it is pretty far down in the ranking. I would say though that the final 5 of these that I'm going to show you, they could easily be moved with one another. I kind of have the same like feeling about them as I do the very next one in the bottom 5. So if that helps you, that one could be moved anywhere in the bottom 5 and I would have been fine with it. Ranking is actually pretty tough. I kind of put them in categories of like most favorite, least favorite, and then I sort out the middle. So yeah, it's never easy when I'm doing these. Coming in at number 34 is the Snackaroony's blush from Bakerie. This says it is a bite size. I don't know if it's a mini or not, but that's what it says. This is in the shade Freshly Baked. I really like the longevity on this one. I really like the formula on this one. However, it's just kind of a shade that's pretty punchy, so it's not an everyday shade for me. But I do like it with very soft hand, because it's more, I don't know, I guess it's a more burnt orange color. And so I like that, especially for the fall time. So I'll grab for this a little bit more, but I do have to be careful because it is very, very pigmented. So formula, not an issue. It's more just of a shade preference is the reason that it got put at number 34. So coming in at number 33 is the Essence Blush Lighter, and this is in the shade Classic Sunburst. This is a gradient powder blush. So I believe this is designed to be both kind of a hybrid, so it's a blush and a highlighter, or just kind of a very shimmery blush. And I do like this shade. I think that it translates well in the cheeks. I do like the blush lighter. I mean the highlight portion of this, and I really like to take kind of the middle and swirl it around so that I kind of get a little bit of both the shimmer and the blush. And I think it's a very good formula. It's quite beautiful. It's just maybe a little bit too shimmery when it translates onto the cheeks than I'm used to wearing on an everyday basis. I do like something a little bit luminous, I guess, in the blush department. I love a matte blush too, but I think this one is maybe just a little bit too luminous once I kind of put it on the cheeks, and I get more of a sheen than I like for an everyday wear. But I do think that this is a good product. I love that it's very inexpensive. I like the concept of this. So it is a good one. It's just that it's probably one that I don't grab for as much as some of my other ones because of that sheen, and that's it. So that is why it's at number 33. I don't dislike really any of these blushes except maybe the Balm Fire one. So just because they're low doesn't mean I do not like them, because that is not the case. Coming in at number 32 may upset some folks because it's a really, really popular blush, but it is the Dior Backstage in Rosy Glow. I like the formula of this blush. However, I do not like the shade on my skin tone. It has a purple undertone, but when it translates onto my fair cheeks, it just kind of looks like this really, really pale pink, and I kind of look sick. I don't think that it gives me a sun-kissed look, and that's usually kind of what I'm going for on my fair skin. Instead, it makes me look flushed. Like I said, like maybe I'm a little bit sick, and I just don't love the way that that looks. So it has that purple undertone. It is that pretty baby pink. It's just not the most flattering on my skin tone. I do like its longevity, and I do like the formula on this. It is entirely a shade preference for me, and that's the reason that it came in at number 32. Okay, so coming in at number 31 is the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Multi Glow. So this is actually a highlighter. It's called the Beautifying All Over Glow highlighter. The reason that I stuck these in my blushes is because of the shade on this. So this is in the shade Dreamlight, which I believe is the lightest of the ones that Charlotte came out with. There were two different depths. So there was a lighter one and a darker one, and I believe that this one was the lighter one. I could be completely wrong, so if I am, I entirely apologize. However, it is just too dark for me, and I do not like the concept. I thought I would, I just ended up not liking the concept of having different shades spread throughout the same product. I didn't like that. I don't like digging for one product with a small brush. I really like to apply my blush quickly, and so I will swirl my brush into the product and then just dab it on. And for that specific reason, it works best as a blush for me because it has kind of this deeper pink here. I just can't get into like the one shade right here that works as a highlighter for me, my tiny little brush in there, nor would I want to for the price point because it was quite expensive. It is a more powdery formula. It is like a powder product. It isn't baked, but it's just not my favorite quality either. I don't find that the longevity is the greatest. I like Charlotte Tilbury products, and I like the way this looks when it's applied because it kind of turns out to be more of an orange tone, which is what I prefer. But again, it was designed as a highlighter. It's a little bit shimmery. I don't find it's the longest wearing, and it's pretty shimmery overall. So that is why it came in at, I don't know, 31 is where I think we're at. So coming in at number 30 is the Sheglam. This is the Cosmic Crystal Mousse Blush in Aha Honey. I really do like this shade, and I like this formula. I like the way that it feels when I swatch it. However, the problem with this is that it's quite hard to pick up on a brush. And when I first touched it, it was very like cooling to the touch. It felt like a powder to cream or cream to powder formula. And it's close. It's a mousse blush. I would say that it's definitely a powder product, but it was so hard to pick up on a brush that it causes me to work more than I want it to. The shade is fantastic. The formula when you swatch it is very pigmented. I think once I am able to pick it up on a brush, the lasting power is pretty good. The finish of it is really nice. It's just so hard to get on a brush. So it makes me like dig in, tap, dig in it again, tap, dig in. And I don't like to have to work that hard. And so for that reason, every time I look at it, it gives me kind of the same feeling. It's just not as no hassle as some of my other blushes. I say no hassle when I talk about blushes all the time. And the reason is I'm usually like in a rush, right? Like I'm dipping my brush in and I'm applying it. And I'm trying to get the heck done with my makeup so I can get to work or just move on with whatever. I mean, that's what happens when you have kids and a job, and right, like that's what happens to all of us. So I'm usually flying around, and when I'm like digging into this product over and over again, it's frustrating. But everything else I really like about it. It's a very, very inexpensive blush. I am not going to quote the price because every time I do, someone in the comments inevitably says that's not what that costs, and it's like, okay, well, my apologies. I do not have the best memory on how much everything costs because I do have quite a collection. So I never mean to get anything wrong. So I will go ahead and list all the products in the description box. But I do know overall Sheglam is an inexpensive brand. So it is a really inexpensive product, and for that reason, it's quite nice over something that maybe like, you know, was higher end that just kind of performs middle of the road. So I do like it. It's just more of an application issue for me, and that's why it comes in at number 30. Coming in at number 29 is a product that I use as a blush specifically because of shade, but that is not what it was originally intended for. So at 29, I have the Physicians Formula Butter Cookie Bronzer. This one is in the shade Sugar. So this came in like a set for holiday, I think last year, or Valentine's Day. I can't remember. Maybe it wasn't any particular holiday. It was just more in a set, and it came with I think 4 altogether, but this one was just too light of a shade for me. It came out very orange for a bronzer, and I didn't like that tone, and then it had that pop of pink in the middle that actually was quite pigmented. It's that Physicians Formula goodness that we all know and love, and so for that reason I like it. I do think it has good longevity. I do not think about reaching for this over some of my other ones, and it has nothing to do with formula. It has nothing to do with necessarily the shade. I think it's more that I kind of look at it and it confuses me. I know that I put it in my blush drawer to use as a blush, but I look at it and I think, how did I feel about that? I can't remember. So it's more of like how the product makes me feel, and when I'm looking at it, how many times I grab for it over the other ones. And that's really the only reason, because it has a good amount of longevity. It's a decent shade, but I believe that once this like overspray is gone, this pink in the middle, that it might not be something I want to use for blush anymore, because it actually may be too orange toned for me. That's probably not even like could possibly happen as orange a blush as I like. But anyway, that is why it came in at number 29. Coming in at number 28 is again another product that's more of a hybrid. It probably was designed to be a bronzer, but it's one of those that has multiple shades within the product, and therefore once swirled around, it's more of a blush for me. So this is from Guerlain. This is the Terracotta Light. It's in the shade Natural Rose. It's actually called the Sunkissed Healthy Glow Powder, light and long lasting. So I believe this could be used for multiple instances. I think you could use it as a bronzer. I think you could use it as a blush. I think originally the way they sold this to me in Nordstrom was that it was a bronzer, but it just came off way too light to be a bronzer, and it has quite a bit of pink in it. And so when I started swirling my brush around, it was too light of a bronzer for me, and I felt that it looked better as a blush, and so that is what I use it for. And here is the swatch here. So just too warm and too light a bronzer than I typically go for, but it actually comes off quite orange. And so it turns into a shade for a blush that I will grab for quite frequently. At this point, I don't know what I expect for products that are that expensive, like luxury items. I guess because I have like $3 blushes in my collection, or whatever the Sheglam costs, and the Sephora ones and drugstore ones that perform so well, that when I buy a blush or a product that's this expensive, I honestly still expect to have my like socks knocked off, and I'm just totally in love with it, and it's totally worth every penny. And so when that doesn't happen, I get a little bit frustrated, because I look at the product and I go, well, even if I didn't like it, I probably wouldn't get rid of it simply because of the price point. And so I'll find a purpose for it in my collection one way or the other. I do like Guerlain products, but this one is just kind of one of those hybrids where I feel like I'm making it work instead of it just works so well for me. But not a bad longevity, not a bad color, just kind of maybe a harder formula, not the longest lasting, and high price point. Coming in at number 27 is the Primer Infused Blush from e.l.f. This is in the shade Always Cheeky. This is a very orange shade, right up my alley. It's exactly why I purchased this product. And I know that these are very popular. I have like 36 powder blushes in my collection, and I like a lot more than I have tried over the years. And so I do like this formula. I just don't love it over some of my other ones, and that's why it's like lower ranked. I don't think it lasts as long as some of my other ones. I think it's beautiful. I think it almost feels like, you know, like a baked formula. I think those primer infused ones do. And I think it's a really, really good shade for me and what I like. I just don't look at it and go, oh my gosh, that gives me the feels. And I will grab for other blushes in this color, like over this one. And that's the only reason that it came in at number 27. Next, coming in at number 26 is the Rimmel Maxi blush. This is in the shade Third Base. This is just a powder blush from the drugstore, very, very inexpensive. It's a pretty good shade. It's kind of mauve-y toned, and the reason that I ranked this a little bit higher than the e.l.f. one is because it has a slight sheen to it. Just such a slight sheen that it's actually quite fun. It's not just a flat matte, and for that reason I thought, you know, I kind of reach for this one a little bit more than the other one because of that sheen. And I don't know if you can see it, but I will try. And that sheen just translates really nicely on the cheeks. And that's it. It's no more long lasting or less long lasting than the e.l.f. Primer Infused Blush. It is that sheen that put it just above the e.l.f. Coming in at number 25 is the House Labs. This is one of the baked blushes from the Casa Gaga collection. It's called the Tutti Gel Powder All Over Cheek and Lip Color. This is in the shade Rossini. So I purchased this, I think, from her website before she stopped this collection and then went into Sephora. So she doesn't carry these anymore. I don't know if you can still get this particular collection like on Amazon. I'm pretty sure you can't get it on her website, but I quite liked this collection. I picked up a few items from it. So when I placed the order, I think that they were pretty low in stock on some of these blushes. And I think what happened is I ended up getting a shade that I didn't love because I really wanted to try the formula. So it is a deeper pink shade, which to me again kind of translates, I don't know, a little bit too dark for my skin tone or a little bit too pinky for my skin tone that I like. Looking under these bright lights, it's really hard for me to tell because I look at the swatches and, you know, 90% of them look exactly the same. But when it translates onto my cheeks, it's too pink for me. Too pink for my preferences anyway. I think the longevity is fantastic on this, and I really like the formula on this. The only other thing that I dislike about this is that it's quite hard pressed, even for a baked formula. And so I have a hard time, again, picking it up on my brush, and I'm digging to really get something. A lot of these swatch really well with a flat finger, but when you start using like a fluffy brush to dip into the product, and sometimes they will have a hard time picking up the product that way. So it did rank a little bit lower because of the, you know, the density and how difficult it is to pick up and apply, and that the shade is a little bit too pink. But that's not the blush's fault. I picked it. I knew that it was going to be a pink shade, but I took a risk anyway because I wanted to try the formula. But that is why it came in at number 25. Coming in at number 5 is a trio, and it was from a holiday set. So it actually came with 3 different blushes in this collection, and they ranked a little bit differently, and not because of the formula, but because of the shades on these. So I'm gonna hold this sideways because it's very reflective. This is the Blush Authority Amazonian Clay Cheek Wardrobe from Tarte. This comes in 3 different shades, so you do like twist it out, and the first shade here is called Yours Truly. This one here is called Into You, and this one is called Playtime. I really like these 2 shades right here. Even though this is kind of more of a pink color, it comes off more mauve on my cheeks, but this one I don't reach into that often because it does have a shimmer in it. And I like it, I don't reach for a shimmery blush as much as I do a more matte blush or a matte blush with a slight sheen on it. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So this blush right here is the top one, and that's not the greatest swatch, but you can see that it has a really big sheen to it. And so it's not something that I reach for all of the time because it's very reflective. This one here is a really nice, I don't know, peachish color, and this one is a pinky mauve color. So I do like the bottom 2 blushes. I have mentioned before not liking the Amazonian Clay formula for Tarte, but I honestly believe that these are a different formula that are in the single Amazonian Clay Tarte blushes. I find those ones are much harder pressed and very difficult to get out. I think that this formula in this packaging here is much more powdery and very easy to pick up on a brush. I don't love the packaging on these, but I have kept these around. These were from a holiday set 2 years ago, so they're a little bit on the older side, but I don't want to get rid of them because I actually really do like them, and I think that they perform really well. And I'm sure that they're probably still good, being that they're like a powder product. So coming in at number 23 is the same exact thing. This is just in a different shade. So this is, again, the Blush Authority from Tarte in the Amazonian Clay Cheek Wardrobe. This does not come with 3 blushes, but the reason that it ranked higher than the other one is because the blush in this collection is a shade that I like more frequently than the other ones. So this is a highlighter in Let It Glow. This is a blush in I'm Smitten, and this is actually a bronzer in Getting Toasty. So it's the only one, I think, in this cheek wardrobe here that had the trio, but I just really like this shade blush. It's a very mauve color. It's a very everyday, very wearable shade. It performs just like the other one. It is simply a shade preference for me that it ranked higher than the last one I just showed you. And by the way, that highlighter and that bronzer in that is so good. I love all three of those products. I thought that was really well curated in terms of color. I thought the formula was really nice, and I really love to travel with that guy. So next up, coming in at number 22, may be unpopular opinion. In fact, I know it's going to be unpopular opinion, not it may be. This is the Pat McGrath Skin Fetish Divine Blush, and this is in the shade Divine Rose. The reason that I really don't like this is a couple of reasons. It's very pricey. The packaging stinks, and I feel like it's a very hard product to pick up on my brush. I think the shade is very nice. I really do like it, but it's just kind of a powder blush for me, and because it's quite hard to pick up, I don't think that it performs better than some of my more inexpensive products. It's just that simple. So really good shade, quite mauvey, has a nice little sheen to it. I do not find that it is that long lasting. And I have said before, one of the things that I really love about certain blushes is that they're quite long lasting, because the more long lasting that they are, generally they're going to rank a little bit higher. I'm like a dog or a cat that just rubs their face all over everything. So I like something that really stays on my cheeks, even stains them. So I think it's really difficult to pick up with a brush. I have a hard time every single time I use it. I like the sheen, I like the color, but for the price point, I don't think that it's that great over some of my more inexpensive blushes, and the packaging bothers me. I feel like I'm really depressing it to get it to open. Just not my favorite. I do like it. I just know that I have said some complaints about that blush in the past. Coming in at number 21 is a blush from Laura Mercier. This is the blush color Infusion, and this is in the shade Coeur Royale. So this is not a formula thing, the reason that it's at 21, because I have one of her other blushes that is ranked much higher that is just like this. It's in a completely different shade. The reason is because of this shade. Now, I will not declutter this, even though it is more of a purple shade, because it comes off quite mauve on the cheeks if you go in with a light hand. And I think it's great for fall. And I just liked the way that that looked on my cheeks. And so I get away with this color just fine. It is a little bit deeper than I normally reach for. Like I said, I go for orange blushes more often than anything else. And so for that reason, it comes in a little bit lower, and is simply for a shade. It is a quite long lasting blush. It is a great formula. It has a nice sheen to it. It's so easy to apply. Honestly, I think Laura Mercier and her primer infused blushes, so good, so good. If you haven't tried them, I think they're absolutely worth trying. This is obviously Laura Mercier being a little bit more of an expensive a product. I think that it is actually worth the money. So coming in at number 20 is a blush that you cannot get your hands on anymore. This is the Natural Pearl Mineral Glow Blush from Physicians Formula. It has like a pearl pattern within it, and I have panned it a little bit. This is a blush that I used to exclusively use when I had a much smaller collection, when I wanted a more pink shade. You do have this like bottom portion where it comes with the brush, but I've taken that out. It's just not something that I'll use. I think that Physicians Formula does a really good job with their powder products. I think their blushes last a really long time. I think this is on the older end and probably close to being expired, but I loved the sheen on this. Like I said, I used it exclusively. It's a cross between like a pink and like a peach color, but the sheen translates on the skin quite sophisticatedly. It's very nice. It's not overpowering, and it's a quite long-lasting blush. I forget to use it these days, and I think that's why it's probably farther along in the ranking, because there's just so many other newer products that I've purchased over the years that this one kind of got, you know, pushed aside a little bit. But I still think it is a fabulous, fabulous blush. Like I said, I don't think you can get your hands on this one anymore. Maybe a version of this, and I could be wrong, I don't know. But I think I've tried to look for this again and wasn't able to find it. If I am, I obviously will link it below. But I used to, like I said, exclusively use this and one other blush, I think from Milani. That's all I used. Those are the only two blushes. So when I wanted a more pinky blush, this is the one that I reached for. I just think that this was a really, really good blush. So coming in at number 19 is the Clinique Cheek Pop Blush in 05 Nude Pop. I think that this product now has moved up in ranking after I have figured out how to use it. When I initially purchased this, I thought, oh my gosh, it's so light. I'm having such a hard time picking it up on a brush. I spent $32 on this, or whatever it costs, because I'm terrible with prices. and you get this teeny tiny bit of product and it's just not translating onto my cheeks. But I did recently kind of figure out how to use this product a little bit better. And even though it is a pretty hard pressed, like baked formula, if I'm really good at like getting it to pick up on a brush and I get it on my cheeks, it is just such a beautiful, beautiful finish. So it is a very, very neutral, like nude tone, but it has a sheen to it. And the sheen translates beautifully onto the skin. I didn't realize it at first, but as I started catching myself in the mirror and seeing that sheen, I was like, oh, it has a really beautiful finish to it. And the finish was lasting, not just like an overspray where it kind of faded, but the color stayed. It was a sheen that lasted quite as long as the color of the blush did. So as I started to play with it a little bit more and figured out how to use it, make it work for me, I really do quite like this blush. It came in at number 19. It is a pretty good blush. It's not the most product in the world because it is fairly small, but I do like it. Coming in at number 18, I'll turn it this way, is the Jaclyn Cosmetics Luminous Rouge Blush in Love Language. So this is a powder blush. I'm not sure you're able to get this anymore, and I think it's probably the only powder blush that I have in my collection. This is what it looks like. And it's very, very chunky packaging, and it's quite a vibrant shade, but it is a beautiful finish. It's easy to apply, it has a beautiful finish. I quite like the color. And I think that it has really good lasting power. So I'm a fan of this one. Like I said, I don't think that you can get it anymore. I just think this is such a soft, buttery, beautiful formula. It really, really is easy to apply, feels good on your cheeks. I'm just a fan of the finish. And again, it lasts a pretty good amount of time. And I think that it's kind of such a punchy color and so pigmented that it actually stains my cheeks. So it's one of my more longer lasting blushes in my collection. Coming in at number 17 is the Sephora Colorful Matte Blush. This is in the shade Love Child. This actually, I regret placing in this spot. I think that I would have swapped it out with the e.l.f. Primer Infused Blush in the spot that it was and put that one here and then this Sephora one farther down. But I'm not going to take it back now. I do think that they're very similar. I just think that the e.l.f. Primer Infused Blush actually is a little bit longer lasting and a softer formula. They're very similar in shades and they're both matte blushes. I just think that the e.l.f. one lasts a little bit longer, 2 is a little bit easier to apply, and 3 has a bit more of a sheen. So I do regret putting it in the spot that I did, but I think that Sephora collection, wow, that Jaclyn Cosmetics one stained my hand, actually. I do think that the Sephora collection does do a good job on these blushes. So I don't dislike them. It's just very, very similar to the e.l.f. one. And I think Sephora collection does a good job on these blushes. They have contours. I think their powder highlighters that are similar to this but not the same are also very good. I just swapped this out places. Coming in at number 16 is the Milani Baked Powder Blush. This one is in the shade Dolce Pink. This is a fantastic formula, fantastic baked formula. So good, so long lasting, super easy to apply, massively pigmented. The only reason it's at number 16 is because of the shade. It is a pinky kind of sparkly, it has a sheen to it, and I do like pinks sometimes. I just don't love them all the time. I prefer to grab for a more orange or nude blush, and that's the only reason that this got ranked where it did and not higher, because I do have another Milani blush that is much higher. And it has a beautiful, beautiful shimmer, a beautiful sheen to it. It really, really is nice for when you're like reaching for something like this. The longevity I said is great. The application is super easy. It is simply because this is a more pink color that I don't reach for on an everyday basis, and that's the only reason it's at number 16. So the next one coming in at number 15 is actually a very new product for me. It's not a new product on the market at all, but this is the Patrick Ta Double Take Cream and Powder Blush. And this is in the shade Do We Know Her? I'm trying to get the reflection not to show up. So I'm specifically talking about the powder blush in this instance and not the cream blush. I think the cream is great, but I don't want to talk about that in this video. So the powder blush here It is pretty good. I think the longevity isn't as long as like some of my other blushes, but I think it's very, very nice, like to the touch, very easy to pick up on a brush. I think it's a really nice like formula, and I have been just quite enjoying this. In fact, I've been liking it so much. I've just been applying it to my cheeks and then also have been using it for my eyeshadow on the upper part of my eye. And it's been working quite well. So I have really, really been liking it. It is a very, very soft formula. It feels really nice. All right, coming in at number, I think we're at 14, is the Bare Minerals Gen Nude Powder Blush. And this is in the shade Call My Blush. This is a really long lasting blush. Very, very pigmented. A little product goes a long way. It's very no hassle application. I think the shade is really, really a great neutral shade. I quite like this. I think it's a mini. I don't think it's a full size, but it is like almost a cream formula. It's just so soft. And I think it's a really, really good blush. There is the swatch on that one. I would say it's almost my softest powder blush in my collection. I do really like this blush. It's hard. So from here on out, the rest of these were quite difficult to rank, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. I could transpose a lot of these. I think this is a tremendous blush. I would never declutter this unless it expired. That's just all I can say about that. That's the only reason it's in number 14 is because some of the other ones, maybe shade-wise or longevity, were slightly better, but I think that is a tremendous blush. Coming in at number 13 is a mini. It is the NARS Orgasm X. So this is the Orgasm X, which is like, you know, the amped up version of Orgasm. It actually is a little bit more punchy in color and has a little bit of shimmer to it. I think it's a extremely pigmented blush. Again, this is one of those that a little bit goes a long way. That sheen translates super nicely on the skin. Here, I'll show you. It's quite nice as like an eyeshadow as well. It almost stains my cheeks in terms of like how it performs for longevity. A little bit of the product goes a really long way, and I really, really like this. I would say the only thing with that blush is that it's a bit more punchy than I will wear on an everyday basis. But again, it's just one of those that performs so good that I won't get rid of it from my collection unless the product goes bad. Next, coming in at number 12 is another one of those Amazonian Clay Blush Authority cheek wardrobes. So this one has 3 blushes, I guess, or 2 of them are blushes and 1 is a highlighter. That is specifically how I use it. And again, it's the same exact formula. And the reason that it got ranked at number 12, which is quite above the other 2, is because it has colors that I reach for more frequently. So here are the shades here. This one is in Frosted Frappe. This is in Sweet Cheeks, and this is Sugar and Spice. I will swatch all of these for you. Now, even though this top shade may have been a blush or designed to be a blush, it is more of a like topper or a highlighter for me. I use it as a highlighter. I think it actually, even though it looks a little bit dark in the pan and you might think that it would be too dark on my skin tone, I think that just the right amount of shimmer comes off on my cheeks that it actually still looks good. So there are the shades there. This highlighter has like a shift to it. See, it's like purple to like gold. I just think it looks really good on. This is a peach color. You know I wear peach. And this is like a darker, I don't know, burnt orange color. And you know that I like those. So that's why it got ranked at number 12, which was above the other 2, which I believed they came in at number like 25 and 24. Coming in at number 11 is the One Size Cheek Clapper. This is a 3D blush trio, and it comes with a cream, a powder matte, and a shimmer. So it is an orange color, which is, again, right up my alley, but there are different shades. So this one's called Sugar BB. This one here is Seeking Jen, and this one is Ova. So this is the cream, the matte, and the shimmer. I thought this was great when I picked this up. The cream blush, I'll just mention it here. The longevity is great. The pigmentation, fantastic. It actually became like one that I couldn't put down. I loved reaching for it. Every time I put it on, I was like, man, this is good. But I love the matte too. And honestly, the cream blush in here was my absolute favorite above the other two, but I think the matte performed really well. I loved the color, I loved the pigmentation, and I actually liked taking this like shimmer blush and topping it over the matte, which is honestly not something that I like to do. It actually provides like a shimmer or a sheen in a color that I don't have a lot of. Like I have some that are like pink sheens, but this one was an orange sheen, so I did quite enjoy it, and that is why it came in at number 11. Okay, so we are down to the top 10, or at the top of the top 10. So I'm excited about all of these. I love all of these. I grabbed for all of these the most. So coming in at number 10 is another Laura Mercier blush color Infusion. This one is in the shade Chai. This is a very, very neutral color, and that's the reason that it is higher than the other one, because it is the exact same formula. It's quite long lasting. This just looks super sophisticated on my skin tone. I really love this, the longevity, the color, the application of this. I think these are super soft and creamy, and I love them. But this color in particular looks very flattering on my skin. So same lovely formula, just a much better color on my skin tone. Coming in at number 9 is the Bare Minerals Gen Nude Bronzer. So this is a blush and bronzer in Kiss of Copper. So when these launched and I thought maybe they would work as a blush and a bronzer, I really didn't find that. I don't think anyone really did. I think we all thought, no, it's just a blush. It's just a coppery blush. But I do think that it is a beautiful shade. I think most of the shades in this launch or line were really, really good. I think it has a sheen to it. It is so buttery soft. It has super, super long lasting power. It's one of my more long lasting blushes. It has a great sheen to it. It looks great on the skin. It's quite pigmented. So it's just an extremely good blush. I know now they have repackaged these, and I think they come in like a black case instead of this, I don't know, copper or like more silver colored packaging, but I love it. This was the first launch, and I just think it is so beautiful. Look, even on the swatch, it's just so pigmented, and that sheen is just so, so nice. So that's the reason it came in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is a Milani blush. This is a baked powder blush, just like the other one. This is in the shade Luminoso. So same great formula as the other one that I went over. Another super, super popular formula, and for good reason. Wonderful sheen to it. Nice, long-lasting power. Super pigmented. Very, very inexpensive in comparison to some of my other blushes in my collection. It's so beautiful, and it was the other one that I used exclusively for an orange shade when I had 2 blushes in my entire collection. It was the Physicians formula and the Milani one in Luminoso, and it used to have lettering across here like my other Milani one, but it is now faded off because I have had this for quite a bit of time. I think it is probably still a good powder product. I don't think it's gone bad, but just look at it. It just makes you want to put it on. It's such a beautiful blush. Coming in at number 7 is a blush from Hourglass. It's one of their ambient lighting blushes. This one is in the shade Mood Exposure. This is again just another one, super long lasting, has a nice sheen to it. I happen to find the application very, very easy. It's a baked formula, and it's a very, very neutral and very flattering color. It is much more like easy to pick up than some of my other blushes. It just immediately gives a massive amount of pigmentation when I put it on, and it just has a great opaqueness. I love this color. I think that I put this in like my high-end products that I would always repurchase, because I think Hourglass does an outstanding job in their like baked blush department. So just a tremendous blush, and I quite enjoy it. Love it. All right, coming in at number 7 is the Charlotte Tilbury Cheek to Chic, and this is the Swish and Glow blusher in the shade Pillow Talk. So this is very similar to the Hourglass for me in terms of how I feel it performs and how I feel about it in general. This here has like a pop of shimmer in the middle, but this is a very similar color on the cheeks to the Hourglass one in Mood Exposure. I just swirl this around, and I think that it gives a great sheen again, a really flattering color on my skin. And the longevity is nice, and it's just ultra pigmented right off the bat. I do not work hard to get this blush to just pop on my cheeks, but that sheen is really, really nice. I don't like it when it's too shiny, which is why I've ranked some other ones a little bit lower, but when it has a slight sheen to it, it actually is know, more of my preference. I really like that. So tremendous blush, probably another one that I put in like the high-end products that I would always repurchase and want in my collection. I think that one was in there too. Okay, we are down to the top 5. So coming in at number 5 is the M Cosmetics Heaven's Glow Blush in Venetian Rose. I love this shade. Probably more pinky than I would normally gravitate towards. I don't know if this is a powder product because it looks like it's baked, but I do think that it is powder because it's more powdery. It doesn't really feel like a baked formula when I put my fingers in it. But the sheen on this, the pigmentation, it is one of my most pigmented blushes in my entire collection. The sheen, I think, is unparalleled to any other one when it translates onto the cheeks. I love this long-lasting power on this blush. I almost put this at number 1, and I would say there are some days that I'd look at this and think that it was my top blush in my collection. This is a tremendous, tremendous powder product. I love this. Coming in at number 4 is another like fairly newer product to me, and it's a newer release in the market. This is the Gucci blush in Rosy Beige. So this is a powder cheeks and eyes product. So this here is pretty small for the price point. So the price point doesn't give it points, but the longevity on this blush really does. I didn't think I realized like how long lasting that this blush was until I traveled with it, and I would like take naps and I would like wake up and then the blush would still be there, and I'd go, wait, what blush did I just put on? And I remembered that it was the Gucci blush. It also has a slight sheen to it. It's just not super shiny. And I love this color. It's very pigmented, an easy product to work with, but the longevity really gets me, I think, is what it really is. So coming in at number 4, that is my new Gucci blush. So I always hope the top 5 aren't super disappointing, but I have 2 of the same product coming up that rank in the top 3. So coming in at number 3 is one of the Wonderlust blushes. They're the primer infused blush from Buxom. This one is in the shade Dolly. I love the sheen on these. I love the longevity. I love how easy an application process these blushes give, these Wonderlust blushes. I think the pigmentation is superb. I really, really like these blushes. Again, of my top 3, it's just that sheen, and it's very similar to the other like 3 that I just showed you, but I just think that the sheen is different. It isn't like a gold or silver tone to it. The sheen here is like the same color as the blush. So I just think it's quite unique for that reason. So number 3 for me. So coming in at number 2 is from Katkin. I believe this is a Japanese makeup brand, and goodness knows what this is called because all of the writing is in Japanese, if I'm correct that it is a Japanese brand. But it is in the shade C05. This blush is just quite unique. It is like a marbleized finish, but it has a sheen on it. And it is one of those blushes that almost stains my cheeks. It has such long-lasting power to it. It is very similar to the other one in that the sheen on it isn't like a champagne or a silver, but the sheen is kind of like a pink inside of a pink. So I really just like this sheen. It translates well into the cheeks without being overly shimmery. I think that the longevity, the application, you barely touch this product and so much of it comes off. And it's kind of one of those where I could kind of just keep swatching. I'll kind of show you. And that was just from the one swatch that I did on my finger. So I think this is a tremendous blush. Like I said, long lasting, great color. It is the perfect amount of sheen to it. And I highly enjoy this blush. Coming in at number 2 is the Palace Identity Peony Blush. This is a powder blush in this really, really cute packaging. It's one of those that has an imprint in it, and it has multiple shades within the design. So there is the design there. So what I'll do with this is just swirl my entire blush in here and kind of pick up all of these colors at once. This is again one of those that's just massively pigmented, basically stains my cheeks for a super long period of time. It's like a good orangey, burnt orangey color. It's just no hassle. Like I mentioned, the ones that are much easier to pick up and they're more no hassle application, they rank a little bit higher, as well as like the longevity. So this is just one of those. It's a very matte blush, but it's a very creamy formula. It doesn't have any kind of sheen to it. I just really love how easy it is to apply, and that it is one of those that really like stains my cheeks because it lasts pretty much all day. I'll put it on in the morning and then it's still there in the evening, and it doesn't require any application, like reapplication. And I think the packaging is just so gorgeous. So this is ranking at number 2. So there is the stain on that blush that I just swatched for you, and that's what I mean, like it really stains your cheeks, and I like it. I like when it does that. All right, so I hope number 1 spot doesn't bore you to death, but this is another one of the Buxom Wonderlust Primer Infused blushes. This one is in the shade Seychelles. So I had the other one, it ranked, I don't know, number 4, but this one is just a better color that I like a little bit more than the other one because the other one's a more pinky tone, and this is a more neutral mauve shade. It again has just the best sheen, super pigmented, lasts an extreme amount of time, and it's a sheen that I just love. I can't explain the sheen on these Buxom Primer Infused blushes, but these blushes just give me the feels. I can't explain this sheen and why it translates onto the cheeks a little bit better than some of the other ones that have this sheen. It just really does. So I love this. I reach for this all the time. I will travel for this. It's a tried and true blush for me. I love this more neutrally mauve-y color. It looks very good on my fair skin. So number 1 for me. It could be moved down, but in my mind, it's been at number 1 for quite some time. So that is all 36 of my powder blushes. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'd love to hear in your comments how you thought some of these should have ranked, which ones you have in your collection, and how they may rank for you, if you disagree with any, or if you just want to correct me on the prices that I get wrong, because that's sometimes fun too. I'd just love to hear any comments that you guys have. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.